To be honest, Caleb, you're starting to annoy me now because this is your insecurity talking. This is not your intellect. Come with me.
Hi, I'm Jack Watson, and this is Seen It.
Is your status single?
Yes, it's very important that you never feel totally sure-footed in this film, you know, in the same way that my character Caleb never feels sure-footed.
I'm sorry, Eve, I don't understand.
Ideally, if the film functions, something is happening to the audience which is equatable with what is happening to the protagonist.
Then close your eyes.
Okay.
So a few months ago, I made a video analysing the importance of great dialogue, how a great writer and great editor can make a simple conversation seem like action.
You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount.
But occasionally a movie comes out that is so exceptionally well shot that you can put it on mute and it still makes sense.
Now open your eyes.
So as he's being seduced, we're being seduced. And as we're being confused, he's being confused, and we match each other.
That's writer-director Alex Garland, and he's describing the manipulative visuals of his 2014 thriller Ex Machina.
Did you program her to flirt with me?
If I did, would that be cheating?
Of course, the way in, the bridge in, you are with Caleb, but then you start to kind of question who the protagonist is.
On the surface, the plot of Ex Machina seems quite simple. A lowly coder, Caleb, wins a trip to his boss's house to test an AI invention called Ava.
And you can see that I'm a machine.
So, logistically,
we have just 3 people, sometimes 2 people in a scene, in a room.
Of course, the movie is so much more than just 2 people in a scene, but this cinematic trope is kind of important.
Where are you going?
2 characters walk into a room, any room, big, small, light, dark, doesn't matter. What matters is how the room looks, how it's framed, and who is winning. And we're not talking fistfights here, not necessarily. Instead, we're talking about winning the moment.
Okay, my turn.
This happens a lot. 2 characters want different things, they butt heads, and the conversation gets tense.
You watched me wash.
I watched you get them wet.
Screenwriters punch this up with bold statements and fancy prose.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's 2 of me.
But there's simpler cues, visual ones.
How do you point the audience's eye to look where you want them to look and to get the point, the emotional, psychological point that you want to get across to them?
That's Marty Scorsese describing the most basic cinematic puzzle. The camera tells a story, power shifts, so how do you show it?
I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable.
There's long scenes, very long scenes, with a lot of gear changes and a lot of games being played between actors about who's driving the scene.
For context, Ex Machina is split into 7 sessions in which Caleb tests Ava for independent thought.
Yeah, I know what the Turing test is.
This begins with Caleb excitedly talking to what he thinks is just a smart piece of software, but as the sessions progress, it feels more like 2 animals circling each other, probing for weaknesses.
Are you attracted to me?
What?
Are you attracted to me?
Like I said, the dialogue's great. It was Oscar nominated for Best Original Screenplay, but as per the master of suspense,
they're what I call photographs of people talking.
In thrillers, visuals are more important.
And if possible, tell the story visually and let the talk be part of the atmosphere.
In Ex Machina, the easiest way to test this hypothesis is to analyse and compare Ava's sessions and how they're shot. So first, let's turn off the dialogue and look at the setting.
I think this almost 360 cube idea worked very well for us.
This is session 1. Caleb has freedom, Ava has none, and yet something feels visually off.
Do you have a name?
Yes.
It's a good example of how production design feeds into a story, because then when Ava walks around, rather than feeling like she's got a lot of space, she's more like a tiger in a zoo, walking backwards and forwards over the same spot, and you think she shouldn't be here, she should actually be elsewhere.
Cinematographer Rob Hardy leans into this unsettling vibe with shots like this, you know, very on-the-nose warnings for our main character and for us, but then the true visual manipulation begins. Ava is introduced in the shadows, in silhouettes, in reflections. Visually, she is very clearly a robot. But you'll also notice that Caleb is centre stage for this session. That's important.
Hi.
He's in a medium close-up and Ava's in more of a wide shot, subconsciously implying that Caleb is the one with all the power. Add in the blocking with Ava sitting down and Caleb standing over her, and his alpha status seems unquestionable here.
What would you like to know?
But Hardy and Garland are messing with us.
From my point of view, it was always about shaping and sculpting, doing it very, very quickly. to in some way represent psychologically where they were in that relationship.
Hello, Caleb.
As such, this scene is a clear test of our visual literacy. If Caleb's really the one observing Ava, the one in control, then why give us this shot where he's the one being top-lit, he's the one in the box, he's the one being watched?
Mark said, no, let's give Ava a lot of room to walk around, but let's keep Caleb in a tiny box. So the girl who's imprisoned has space, and the guy who is breaking her out of there is trapped.
Then I guess we're both in quite a similar position.
Ava isn't the zoo animal here, Caleb is, and each subsequent session literally shows us the truth of this deteriorating dynamic.
Each of those sessions, those Ava sessions, we wanted each and every one of them to be different, a progression. So obviously the first time he sees her, there's a real sense of mystery about revealing this incredible thing that Nathan has created. And then as the relationship between Caleb and Ava progresses, to sort of reveal layers of her personality so that she goes from robot to girl as opposed to girl to robot.
To show you this progression, let's play a game.
I've never met anyone new before. Only Nathan.
This is session 1 and this is session 2.
An advanced programmer.
Notice anything different? And more importantly, what are these differences telling us? Well, even though it's subtle, Ava is now hogging the close-ups and now she's looking down at a seated Caleb. Just through a slight alteration to the framing and blocking there, power dynamics have completely shifted and she's the alpha.
So what, you want me to talk about myself?
Yes.
For the record, this intentional alteration of the coverage between shots or scenes isn't a new visual trick by any means. Like, remember, this scene, same thing. It uses simple levels and eyelines to show who has the power. When it equalizes,
See? You wanted me.
And when it flips.
You let 5 people die. Where's Dan? Those mob fools want you gone. So
And some movies like 2015's Room implement really obvious coverage changes to hammer home the film's overarching themes.
There are so many things out here.
Anyway, back to Ex Machina. The room itself never changes and therefore has a consistent visual message.
You just feel, psychologically that everything closes in.
But the way the coverage in the room changes through the 7 sessions is a masterclass in visual manipulation. Like, take this intentionally confusing moment in session 2.
To get to know each other, I guess.
Power cut. Backup power activated.
Caleb's top light is gone while Ava remains lit. So are we supposed to think Caleb is now in control as the observer, or is Ava actually the one who changed the lights to make him look at her? Also, the change to red lighting could mean anything: danger, passion, blood, love. It's intentionally subjective as Garland wants the audience to actively participate in his narrative.
When you write a story, what you're actually doing is writing half the story, and the other half of the story is provided by the recipient, and their agendas and their interests and their lack of interests. People are very selective about what they choose to see or don't choose to see in a story.
On Garland's point, it's worth noting that a lot of the ambiguity in Ex Machina happens outside the interrogation room too. Conversations between Caleb and Nathan, the juxtaposition between nature and technology, an insanely creative lighting setup.
So we integrated all of the lights into the set.
But again, it's the coverage, the visuals that convey all the important information.
You don't have access to use the phone.
And also, yes, and the film is playing a game. It's basically a distraction technique. So the film sort of gives you some things like a slightly dreamlike sequence of his life before the story starts proper. So is it like an implanted memory? And he has these strange symmetrical scars on his back.
Outside of drip feeding us important plot points like this, Garland has talked extensively about the importance of marrying performance with camera work. Like here, he's talking about the way coverage can mold a character in the edit.
You can also manufacture a performance by where you come in and out of the shot and what you play on the back of the head rather than the front of the face.
Jesus Christ. But it's also refreshing to know that the actors on Ex Machina didn't find this visual specificity restrictive. In fact, it had the opposite effect, with Alicia Vikander and Domhnall Gleeson trusting the camera work so much that they felt free to mess with one another in their performances.
Alicia would just start a scene in a different headspace, and all of a sudden you think, oh, well, I really don't know what's going on here. Or halfway through, she would do something and you would think, that's quite robotic. Oh, I'm talking to a robot. And then she'll drop you in by doing something that makes you think, oh, she's a girl and she's a beautiful girl and I'm sat in front of somebody who I could be in love with maybe. You know, those little things, we were able to manipulate each other, I think, into maintaining the mystery too.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Lie.
The result of all these elements, the performances, the sets, the incredibly meticulous camera work, is a rare example of a movie you can understand without sound. Does the sound help? Of course. It's one of my favourite screenplays, the soundtrack rules, this scene alone deserves some volume. But it's a brilliant visual literacy test. Every visual choice is intentional, every shot could support or contradict your suspicions.
And who's undercutting who's on the front foot and who's on the back foot.
And a quick run through the remaining sessions hints at the depth you can read into this. 3, they're physically closer now, but Ava is voluntarily ceding the higher position to Caleb. Does this mean he's in control or she wants him to feel that way? 4, shot almost exclusively in these side-on 2 shots of the same height and these POV close-ups. Is this equal framing a sign of intimacy or manipulation? 5, opens on these over-the-shoulder close-ups. The closest framing yet, which indicates romance, but there's more of Caleb's shoulder in Ava's shot than hers in his. Does this mean he's controlling her or she's in his head? 6, an absolute mind melter. Caleb's in a position of power, but he's also the one under the light. Then the lighting block in framing flip, so it's hard to read, but these mid-shots seem important. The shot of Caleb shows Ava's hand, while her shot doesn't show Caleb at all. Also, this reflection of Caleb reminds me of Ava's introduction in session 1. So, does Caleb now care more about Ava than she cares about him? And more importantly, have they swapped roles? Is he the robot now? I can't show you session 7 without ruining the movie, but again, Ex Machina deserves all the praise it's received for its thought-provoking themes, its revolutionary digital effects, and I'll link some of my favourite video essays on those topics below. Yet somehow, I feel like the subtle complexity of its visuals and what they do to subvert an old-age cinematic trope are incredibly overlooked. Garland and Hardy have done such a great job making this meticulous and intentional, and I find something new every time I watch it. Anyway, I'm Jack, thanks for watching, and next time 2 characters walk into a room, ask yourself, who's winning and why?